If an elevator ever says arriving without opening, don't answer it. Hold your breath. Back away. Let the building decide you're not there. I learned that too late. Now my front door clicks itself shut every night at 3:17 a.m. And somewhere in this tower, there's a peg with my name on it. My real name, spelled right in someone else's careful hand. I didn't move here for the view. I moved because the place promised to make living frictionless. Smart entry, smart lights, smart air. Everything stitched together by a single app that shook hands with every hinge and thermostat. You tap, and the lobby doors spread their teeth. You approach, and the hall brightens. A quiet kind of luxury. I've always wanted the world to decide gently in my favor. The first day, everything gleamed. The only flaw was my door. The latch missed the strike plate by a whisper and bounced. Exactly the kind of thing you notice when you're tired and need something simple to behave. I logged a maintenance ticket. "Frame's swell," the manager said. "Give it a week." At 3:17 that first night, in the blue hour when the city quiets and electronics hum louder, I heard a small metallic task from the hall, as crisp as a coin catching itself. The latch had seated. I checked. It turned cleanly, as if someone outside had leaned a shoulder and nudged it home. Daylight came, and it went back to sulking an eighth of an inch shy. Night fell. 3:17. A neat little click. On schedule. I started counting down without meaning to, feeling it arrive like pressure before rain. A week in, I stopped worrying about the latch and started worrying about the elevator. We don't have a 13th floor here. A lot of buildings don't. I didn't care. What I noticed was how the elevator behaved after 12. The panel glowed a polite red you can read without thinking. 9, 10, 12. Then a hush behind the hum, and the speaker offered a single word.
Arriving.
No ding, no doors, just that calm syllable, like it was counting someone else's breath. The first time I laughed it off. New system. Glitch. The second time was harder to laugh. I had a box of dishes under my chin. The numbers crawled while the elevator held still. Then, the voice said it again with patient certainty.
Arriving.
Like a librarian calling your name once. I filed a ticket through the app. Elevator announces arrival but does not stop. A green bubble lit. Open. Before I could set the phone down, it winked to closed at 3:18 a.m., as if the tower had resolved the issues right before it resolved me. I reopened the ticket, added screenshots, closed again at 3:18. I tapped the map pin to see where the ticket was logged, expecting my floor or the lobby, but it showed a blank area labeled S. When I asked at the desk, the manager explained, S is service, sometimes street. The letters just mark different banks, nothing to worry about. In my apartment, the intercom repeated my question a half second after I asked it. A soft ghost echo that shouldn't have been there. I did what you do when you can't sleep. I searched. Rumors suggest there's a thing people whisper about. The elevator game, usually after midnight. Reports claim you ride a certain pattern, and if the doors open on 5 and a woman steps in, it's said that you must not speak, must not look, or you'll step off somewhere that isn't exactly ours. It read like a dare wrapped in instructions. I pretended I didn't believe any of it. Still, once you read a rule like don't answer her, you can't unknow it. You start practicing where to put your eyes. That was the night I decided to meet the voice on its own terms. I set an alarm for 3:15 and rode down with a mug of tea I didn't drink. Inside, the elevator kept that quiet you only get in expensive machinery. Past 12, the display didn't bother faking a 14. It smoothed into blankness. A red bar leaked the start of a letter that never came into focus. Wind kissed the seam of the doors.
Arriving.
The doors slid apart on a place that didn't fit. Primer, corridor. Bare concrete, a skinny neon reflection. No unit numbers, no exit signs. It smelled like a pool with no water, and a bleeding pipe. The building hadn't finished conceiving this one. It had the shape of purpose, with no instructions. I didn't step out. I'm not adventurous, only curious. Curiosity keeps one toe inside. I stared at the threshold and remembered the room's one useful rule: don't answer. As if the hallway itself might ask me a question in a woman's voice. I pressed one with the kind of superstition you laugh at in daylight. The light didn't turn on. The elevator idled with a patience that felt older than a speaker. A voice answered from the corridor, not through the grill. "Don't wander," he said, the tone of someone who said it too many times. "It recalculates if you take too many steps." He walked into view wearing an old navy polo with our building's logo in a serif I'd never seen, the emblem from a ribbon-cutting photo. Painter's dust striped his knuckles. A heavy ring of keys hung from his hand like gravity's bracelet. "You staff?" I asked. "Was," he said, as if the tense didn't belong to him. He lifted the keys just enough to make them clink. Apples of brass, slivers of nickel, each tagged with masking tape in a neat hand. He watched just past me, measuring the elevator like a teacher measures the space around a child. "It's off," he said, meaning the building, meaning whatever counted us. "People in, people out. It learns your patterns. Sometimes it learns someone twice." The speaker whispered again, longer this time.
Arriving.
"We try to keep it even," he said. "When it miscounts, you can let it hear you. Or let it hear someone else." I didn't understand. He pointed to what looked like a blank wall, really a metal panel, and swung it open. A shallow closet breathed out the smell of detergent, warm dust, and coins. Inside hung a pegboard crowded with keys. Each key had a neat label. Roof, boiler, 12C, 18F, plus people's names in the careful handwriting. These weren't just unit tags. They were names. He pulled one, turned it so I could read the tape. My last name. Most people don't really use them right. The key was thin and carefully made, the kind you usually get when a building only wants to give you basic access. "I didn't give you my name," I said. "You did," he said and shrugged. "Not to me." He closed the closet softly. They count by what they hear: steps, doors, voice. The new setup counts other things too. He tapped the panel. The elevator answered with a tiny click. Heat, motion, body heat where it shouldn't be. If it thinks someone's still here, it waits where the numbers don't match. S level's a waiting room for errors. "That's not what S stands for," I said. He smiled the way someone does when you pick the wrong door on a game show, and they like you too much to cheer. It stands for whatever keeps the model calm. I wanted to be angry at the word model. To say a building doesn't get to confuse lungs and light bulbs. The elevator creates its own rules, shaping us without our consent. "Two choices," he said again. "Let it hear you, or let it hear someone else." Balanced doors behave unbalanced. It looks for substitutes. Half a hall away, another elevator echoed ours a breath late.
Arriving.
The late night posts warned, "Don't look." I kept my eyes on the floor. "Substitutes?" I asked. He glanced at the pegboard as if it had posed the question. "Names help," he said. "So do keys." I don't know what made me ride back up. Maybe the air on that unlisted floor felt like a mouth that had learned how to inhale. Maybe I knew if I stepped out, the elevator might forget how to return me anywhere I recognized. My floor looked right and wrong. Same framed art, but hung 2 inches left. Same carpet, but a seam ran like a vein I didn't remember. My door swung easily. The latch settled without complaint. Inside, a box I hadn't opened had its flaps nested like a solved puzzle. Hands that weren't mine. The air held a degree from outside. Then 3:17, a tidy snap. The latch found home by itself. Locks click when someone is trustworthy. I wrote a note and taped it inside my door. Do not ride after 3:15. Do not answer if it repeats your words. If the door clicks, let it. My handwriting looked like a stranger's warning. You find and pretend isn't meant for you. Then I did the thing that keeps me up. I took the elevator back to that soft white corridor, to the closet, to the pegboard. I put the key with my name on its hook. I decided to believe it was a mechanical problem. Systems want balance. Give them a number and the lights stop flickering. I told myself that in a voice as quiet as a coat slipping off a chair. Somewhere behind me, an elevator spoke to an empty hall.
Arriving.
I kept my eyes forward, the way the late night posts warned. I didn't want to see who might be waiting on a 5th floor that doesn't exist. By morning, the app stopped pushing midnight pins. My ticket stayed closed. The elevator obeyed the digits again. The latch clicked once at 3:17, then forgot the second click it had learned. I could have let it slide, if not for the new neighbor. The manager said 12C had been filled. Great couple, perfect fit. That evening I saw a woman balancing a box the way I had. Chin tucked, breath. Careful, moving through steel and glass like someone volunteering to be brave. The doors shut on her with a sigh. Past 12, my elevator stayed quiet, but I heard the one in hers.
Arriving.
Then another elevator answered a half-second late.
Arriving.
I could have stopped her, wedged the door, told her, if the intercom repeats you, it isn't an intercom. Told her about 3:17 and the neat click and the smell I couldn't forget. Told her what the forums say not to do if something steps in on 5. But buildings love polite people. They love it when you pretend you're not superstitious around machines. Upstairs, I pressed my ear to the door like it was a heartbeat. At 3:17, 1 click, no second. The note didn't curl at the corners. Weeks became a habit. I taught myself not to breathe when I passed the elevator after midnight. It sounds ridiculous, but the controller picks up body heat and motion like signatures. If you stop for half a second and hold still, you become less than a line in its chart. You sink into the background. You promise not to upset the system. Every so often the word returns from nowhere, soft, patient, certain as fingers, finding keys in the dark. Arriving. The first time I heard it without the elevator around me, I was in my kitchen with the tap running. The sound came through the intercom, the faintest whisper. Then the intercom echoed it, and the cold went down my spine like I'd leaned into a freezer. I've learned not to answer anything that repeats me. That's how you permit it to correct you. The rumor helped, I'll admit. It gave my fear a shape to refuse. I'm telling you this, not because I think you'll listen, but because you already know the sound, I mean. Maybe it isn't an elevator for you. Maybe it's your phone calling your name from a room you're not in. Maybe it's the smart speaker waking when you aren't talking. Maybe it's the door that shuts itself at the same minute every night, like it remembers your bedtime better than you do. A building that learns is a building that counts. It counts steps. It counts doors that shut and stay shut. It counts the tones in your voice when you talk to nobody. It will count you once if it's working well, twice if you're unlucky, and then it will look for a subtraction. There's a floor in our tower that won't exist. The panel refuses its letter. The manager doesn't like questions. If you ride with the right kind of silence at the wrong time, you can find it. You'll know you're there because the air is thinner. The mop is wet like it was waiting, and the hall, now that I think about it, reeks of chlorine and raw copper. There's a closet with a pegboard inside. Every peg labeled in handwriting you'll swear you recognize from school. Some nights, when the city is a cooled skillet and the windows hold your reflection like a scold, I think about that peg. I picture my key hanging there, thin and obedient, beside other names that needed the numbers to make sense as badly as I did. I picture the old hand in the wrong logo polo, listening not to me, but to the breath of the place, as it decides whether the model is calm, or whether the controller wants another correction. Sometimes I think I hear her, the neighbor in the hall at 317, the gentlest jostle of a box against a hip. I try not to think like that. I try to think in the building's vocabulary, occupancy, patterns, the elegant math of comfort. It's easier to live with yourself if you learn its language. If you ever find yourself standing in a metal room while the numbers climb, and there's a hush you could mistake for thought, then the voice says that word, without offering a way out. Remember me. Don't say anything. Don't even breathe. Let the building decide it miscounted. If it insists, if the doors slide open on primer and concrete and copper, and a man with dust in his knuckles talks about balance, you can step out if you want. You can see the pegboard. You can touch the keys. You can even find your name written correctly for once, and feel the relief when a place recognizes you. Just know that recognition is a claim. Know that this tower has already learned how you walk, how your door sounds when it closes, how your breath lies when you do. Know that once the model holds you twice, it needs to let someone else go. Most nights, I lie awake and count to 317 with my hand on the wall. I can feel the elevator's cables like distant thunder. I tell myself the quiet is kind, that machines don't have opinions, that air is just air. And yet, I watch my door like it's a throat, and I listen for the tiny catch, that polite, closing argument. If you arrive late and we talk too long, and you step into the hall at the wrong moment, I will ask you to wait. I will ask you not to press the call button. I will ask you to humor my superstition and stand very still until the system forgets to count you. And if the speaker says that word to the empty landing, if it calls a name it has learned to expect, Not yours and not mine, then I'll ask you the last question anyone asked me on that white corridor where the air tastes like a room being readied for strangers. Will you let it hear you? Or will you let it hear someone else?
Arriving.